Welcome to Story Punk. I am Scott.
And I'm Drew.
And we are here today to talk about the movie Heretic with Hugh Grant. And it's directed by Bryan Woods and Scott Beck, who also were the writers of A Quiet Place.
Which is one of my favorite recent thriller, sci-fi, horror movies of a long time. So I was very curious about this one.
And they also were the writers and directors of 65 with Adam Driver.
I have not seen that, and I admit the biggest reason I didn't see it, even though I like dinosaurs and Adam Driver, is because I saw After Earth and didn't care for it. So maybe I need to give it a chance because I'm not afraid of watching a movie I don't like. But I am not familiar with that one.
Yes, I'm not. But it is very interesting that this movie that they also wrote and directed Heretic, as well as a dinosaur action movie. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about what Heretic's about, the movie. And I was struggling how to exactly articulate a good summary for this. So I actually just went to the internet, which is probably the best way to do it.
I've been there.
So I've once or twice. So this is a good summary as any, and that is that it's the story of two young missionaries that are forced to prove their faith when they knock on the wrong door and are greeted by the diabolical Mr. Reed and become ensnared in a deadly game of cat and mouse. You know, I actually didn't read that before I read.
Yeah,
that's
Jesus.
really dumb. Okay, basically, it's two Mormon missionaries that go to
Two young ladies. Yep.
Two young ladies, and they go to a house
where they have been invited.
Yes,
they're out in public and they're knocking on doors and they're talking to people and handing out their pamphlets and stuff. And at some point before the movie begins, they must have met Hugh Grant's character, Mr. Reed, and he expressed interest in having them come over. And so they do as a storm begins, and they find him a little odd, but they're determined to do their job and spread the word, and then it gets a lot darker.
Yes, and so some of the themes that they're talking about in this movie, obviously there's a lot of talk about belief and faith and skepticism, of course, the afterlife, and it also sort of poses the question: is it what's scarier, believing in God or not believing at all?
Well, plus, lest people think that this is only serious theology, which wouldn't put me off the movie. This is a genre film, a horror film,
yes,
written by guys who are genre guys who have worked in a couple of different genres, and I think that it does work as a horror film as well as being thoughtful. As well as being some other things that we'll discuss.
Yeah, I think it's one of those types of. Through a lot of genre type movies are usually exploring themes. A lot of. Basically, I feel like you have two types of genre films, especially, and I feel like horror and sci-fi are the two that most. They're either just silly, goofy, or they are talking about something. They're not really about what you're watching.
You mean the whole elevated horror,
yeah,
all that kind of stuff.
And the same thing with and I think sci-fi has, in most cases, will be about something else. Usually about something about else that's going on in society. Usually currently, and then you have horror tends to be either just like the silly, almost mindless slasher, but then sometimes they are used to talk. Those types of movies are used to talk about other things that are going on through sort of like a allegory, symbolism.
Yes, welcome to genre filmmaking by thoughtful people, pretty much.
Yes.
Yeah.
This I should note that the Bryan Woods, who is one of the directors, he wrote this after his dad had died from cancer. So I think that was sort of a I think he'd had this idea, sort of some kind of idea like this about religion, but I think the idea of, and this sort of explores like, well, what sort of happens after you die, which is a big question that sort of comes up whenever you're talking about the faith. What happens after you die comes up a lot as far as whether you believe or not. It's that's a big topic of discussion. And so that's I think that sort of was it gave him sort of another layer to the story. So
I think this is a more successful working out the loss of your parents feature film than The Matrix Resurrections.
Yeah, I would say I'm not a huge fan of the. I like the first Matrix, but
I hear you.
a little. And it is. I do like the idea of, and I think this is something they sort of set out to prove when writing the story was that can you have a horror movie that is very dialogue heavy, and I once it really comes down to how well can you craft the story, and I'll be honest, when you go into this story, as soon as they go into that house, there's something you have something uneasy.
It's unsettling.
Yeah, there's something about that. They said that the filmmaker said that they deliberately structured the story with sort of like as like a fairy tale, and I don't necessarily know structure wise if I got that feeling, but I did get a sort of a Hansel and Gretel kind of feel to it made me think of that. Especially when I found that out after seeing it and reading that, they said, they were trying to go for a fairy tale quality. So I don't necessarily know if I felt that as I was watching it, but afterwards I did get kind of like a Hansel and Gretel vibe after, in retrospect, that's what was going, especially with the whole thing with the pie cooking and
right.
So that was, so I do think that is a,
well, you also don't know. I mean, even as they are discussing religion, which is a supernatural subject of discussion in the movie, you're not sure in the movie at different times, is it really something supernatural happening? Is it something that people believe is supernatural happening, or it's not happening? And then as you get to know the characters and learn their identities and their histories and their motivations for things, that becomes clearer as it goes.
Yeah, I think that you are. I mean, really, throughout the whole movie, you are, and until you get to sort of like the very end, you're kind of thinking, is the like you said, is this really supernatural or not? Especially once we get further in, and once the two young Mormon women are sort of in peril, even then when you feel like almost they're trying to present it like this is supernatural. You're like, maybe it's not,
right?
So that
right.
that is a
and the degree of skepticism of that held by the two young women characters, Sister Paxton and Sister Barnes. They have their own reactions to whether it is or isn't supernatural, and that's of course what Hugh Grant is playing with, because Hugh Grant's character has an agenda where he's going to essentially get religious. At first, he's going to get religious people into a conversation. It's not a very well-framed conversation since you can't get out of his house, but it's a conversation about essentially whether religion and God is real and why religion is. And I mean, I personally find that subject really interesting, and I think that the inclination for religion is based on the broader thing that we already talked about, that we all share death and we don't know what happens after death. And there's a fear of what's out there in the darkness. So for someone to tell other people or to come from some other place and tell other people, I have the answer, I have all the answers, of course, that's incredibly compelling. And Hugh Grant is definitely, his character is from a position that is, none of that is real. Spoilers.
Yeah. And I think something that we don't necessarily do in with the movies that we discuss in this podcast that maybe might be worth doing is maybe giving a little bit, talking a little bit about what actually happens, as far as like, is that when these two young women come in, first of all,
give a
little more of the plot, a little more of the plot than we do,
absolutely.
because I think it's important for this movie to discuss that.
It is very specifically structured.
Yeah. So with this, they I don't know, and I'm not going to pretend like I know a lot about the Mormon mission work, but when they
you didn't see the musical?
I did not.
It's good.
They actually mentioned that.
They do mention it, and I would imagine lots of Mormons are familiar with it,
Yes.
whether they haven't seen it or they've seen it or not. And I mean, Mormon stories of Mormons and Mormon history and Mormon culture and stuff. It's all through pop culture in a lot of ways. I mean, I watched Bill Paxton's Big Love. I'm sure that I have opinions about it that may be different from people inside the Mormon community and inside different parts of the Mormon community. Peter Berg just did American Primeval on Netflix, that is about the history of the Mormons in the Old West, and it is, I would say, both unkind and not inaccurate. The savagery of some of those stories. So this is a modern take on the conversation about essentially whether God exists, whether religion is real, whether religion is helpful or harmful, and it's made by 2 Mormon filmmakers. So they bring that very personal background into the story that they've decided to tell. If I made this movie,
who's Mormon filmmakers?
Aren't Scott Beck?
No.
Oh, they're not.
No, they're not.
Oh, I thought they were.
No, the 2 actresses were ex-Mormons.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I got that backwards. I apologize.
Okay, so let me go back to what I was trying to say before.
Please.
Was that the as far as the plot goes, is that they aren't. So the point I was trying to make, as far as not
Before
knowing,
I started talking, I get it.
no, the point I was trying to make, as far as me not knowing, but it's my understanding, and it probably is accurate, since the 2 actresses were ex-Mormon and they were able to sort of inform the story, is that they are not allowed to come inside to Mr. Reed's house unless there is another woman present.
Right. They keep saying female roommate.
Yeah. Well, first they say female roommate, and he's like, well, I have.
Right. Does my wife count?
Does my wife count? And they're like, oh yes. So they come in.
Also, he's very Hugh Grant the whole time.
Yeah.
It's very disarming.
And you're like, but well, yeah, but
it's creepy.
But he does a good job, because I think he does a good job in the acting of saying that he is. Portraying sort of that Hugh Grant, but there's something a little different, because I felt right from the beginning that when they first come in, that I'm like, this guy doesn't have a wife, but maybe he does. But I kept waiting to see if they were going to bring up, like, if someone. I figured if there was another woman in there, that it probably wasn't his wife, but I wasn't sure. Was there going to be?
Oh, there are other women in there.
Well, yeah, but that's so when they come in, the Sister Paxton, Sister Barnes. I don't want to say Barton. And they come in, and so they're talking, and this is when the anxiety starts to come in, because they're talking about religion, but then they keep bringing up saying, "Is your wife going to be joining us?"
Right.
And he seems to keep putting it off. He goes in the back. He seems like acts like he's talking to someone. You never hear him speak. And there was apparently some sound design that I didn't necessarily catch all of it, but there was some sound design that make it seem like there might have been something that may have been talking or
they're definitely if you it's subtle, and if you don't have an immersive sound when you're watching it, you won't feel it as much, but there's definitely it does 2 things at once. It makes it sound like somebody else is in the house. It also makes you feel uneasy because you don't believe what he's saying to you. And the movie very clearly and early, with the candle reveal, that it's the smell of blueberry pie.
Yeah, so they think
makes it clear early, like these people are in real danger because they try to leave and they can't open the door. But it is unclear, I guess, even though it's unsettling and you're already like, I think they're in trouble. They also chose to go in there. They have a mission, and they don't want to believe that they're in danger, even as they get more nervous. So before that, it is like, well, does he have a wife? Who's the wife? What's happening? Like, everybody in it is kind of, I'm not sure where I am. I'm not sure what I'm doing. I know I'm supposed to be here, and you don't know what Hugh Grant's agenda is, but he seems pretty assured and unsettling. So it's really something else is in the house, but is it his wife?
Yeah, there is definitely a as the time that they're in the house, as the further along in their conversation, the more uneasy you start to feel, because it does seem like there's something is not quite right. And then once they realize they can't leave, because he goes. When they start to realize something seems off, and they try to leave, and then they can't open the door. Then when they actually kind of press him on, can we leave? He gives a really lame excuse why, like there's a deadbolt, you have to go out the back. There's a deadbolt that's on a timer, and it's just very. And then you're like, okay, now you start to. That's when it kicks in, and I think that's most of the plot that I wanted to get to the point is that these young women are now. You realize they're in something.
They're in danger.
You don't know the degree of the danger, but there's something not right happening, and that's sort of where we are. And then that's when Hugh Grant decides to give them the TED Talk from hell, and.
Right, he brings them into a room further into the house, and it's basically, it's got pews, and it's got religious, figures and representations from different faiths on the walls, and it's got a lot of books, and so you realize you're in some kind of church that isn't a church that religious people would identify with one religion or another, and isn't frankly very welcoming.
And I think this was a Letterboxd review that I saw. Somebody said Hugh Grant is like Jigsaw if he was an insufferable Reddit atheist. So,
well, I'll be honest. I mean, some of the movie really did. I wrote in my notes, "Is this just Saw?" Because there are elements of, well, I need you to make the decision. I'm not the bad guy. I'm just asking questions. Like it's like Jesse Ventura about religion or something. We're just having a conversation, and in a way that I think lets Mr. Reed absolve himself of some level of responsibility when he's having the conversations. Later in the movie, you realize, no, he's really a terrible person, and not just someone who's like too curious and wants to really have conversations. But because you don't really know the degree of danger that they're in, it becomes clear that he's not just like, I'm going to rape and kill you. Like there's something else going on. He has some other agenda.
Well, my take on Mr. Reed's character, the Hugh Grant character, was that because he seems somewhat intelligent, and
no, definitely,
and I get the feeling that he was someone that was looking for something within religion, and he didn't find what he was looking for, and now he's very angry about it. That's my take on that character, because, because whether or not once we get further into it and they start talking about the afterlife and what he is, or at least presenting to them what he's trying to find out or figure out.
Right.
It's like, maybe you're like me where you're kind of like, does he even really believe this? Or as that's being presented to you in the movie, you're like, I don't know if I'm really buying what he's putting out there. Even though it's being sort of revealed as like, this is his real motive. I'm like, I don't even know if I believe that. I don't even know if that's really what he's trying to do here.
Well, I mean, first he unsettles you as the audience member, the way he's unsettling these two young women, and then he's very clearly untrustworthy, and you don't know how far it's going to go. So in some ways, we'll talk about it, but in some ways the reveal at the end of what's really going on in this house is horrifying. Yeah, but it's not that surprising.
Yeah, and he is and I think like you have when you look at what each of the three characters sort of represent, I mean, and you have like the the Mr. Reed character, who's sort of like, he's like the disbeliever, and not only does he not believe, he's angry about it.
Well, that's why your idea that he comes from a place where he did believe it and then feels betrayed by it, that makes a lot of sense.
Or at least he was open to it.
Right, but like that makes sense.
Yeah,
like I got hurt by this, I lost something by this. I don't remember if we ever find out if he was ever even married. Like I kind of expected we'd discover, like in The Hunt for Red October, what pushes Ramius over the edge is that the Soviet state let his wife die because she was sick and the doctor was drunk, and you're like, this is what pushes him over. It's very personal. I thought we'd find out that like something happened to Mrs. Reed that was a failure of a religious institution or something. But no, he's just really interested in religion.
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
But yeah, something hurt, or something from his childhood, something like that.
Yeah, I definitely think that he was.
Which I don't need. Yeah. I don't need that, but I kind of thought it becomes very personal. So.
And then you have Barnes, Sister Barnes, who is sort of like, she believes, but I feel like she's very like, she's kind of timid in her belief, I guess. And I do like how they didn't make that character, they never made her like naive. They just made her a little unsure, which I think is very
Are you talking about Sophie Thatcher or Chloe East?
Chloe East.
I mean, that's Sister Paxton.
Oh, wait a minute. Why did I get that?
That's okay. Sophie
Sorry.
Thatcher is
Gotcha.
is Sister Barnes, and Sophie Thatcher clearly
right.
has
She is
a more complex. From when you get to know her, she's more mature.
That's
She's
right.
older,
Barnes.
but she has some more complex.
She's
past.
somewhere in between where I don't think I don't think she is. Whether or not she actually is a believer in religion at all, I think she might believe in religion. I don't think she necessarily subscribes to maybe the Mormon faith, because as we find out later on, and this is a spoiler, is that she actually has a birth control implant, which would not be permitted in that faith. So that is something where you're like, okay, so she's not 100% necessarily on board with that. Whereas you have Sister Paxton, who is, man, when I look at my notes, I was like, I got this.
Oh, you get
no, actually, I see what I did. I'm looking at my notes now, and that was because this is fascinating when I talk about my notes to the people out in the audience. But they, the way I
is this episode brought to you by Evernote?
It's brought to you by Evernote. I see the way I did it. I put the description in front of the person's name, and then that's why I messed up. Okay.
Gotcha.
So anyway, that was that was where you have the Chloe East character, who is and I do like the fact that she may be timid, but not but she was never never too timid, because she's the one that suggests they run.
Yes.
But she at the same time is never she's never portrayed as naive or like dumb in any way.
No, she's not dumb.
No, they're both very smart.
When you grow up in what was clearly, a very specific and restrictive and controlled environment, that's just what you think is normal. And it can be, like horribly abusive, or it can just be very strict, or it can be whatever. And Sister Paxton is very clearly like she's never lived anywhere else any other way. You don't know Sister Barnes' history when you first meet her, but she's a little more worldly.
Well, you can tell us, and I'm sure this was, they wanted to set that up from the get-go, because the very awkward conversation they have about, sex and pornography in the beginning of the, that's how she says it in the movie.
Yes, you know how to pronounce
I do know how, but how they discuss about sex, where it is very much, it's very obvious that she is not well versed in that, and that it seems like Sophie Thatcher, her character is a little more. She seems like she kind of gets it a little more, and I think that they did a good job with presenting that, like just enough. What did you think about that whole scene once they move further into the room? Once it's established that Hugh Grant, Mr. Reed, tells them that the only way that they can get out of the house is to go
the two doors.
They're
in the room.
Yeah,
but
once he tells them that the only way to get out is through the back exit of the house, and then now they're in the, I guess it was a library.
Yeah, the one that has the church pews and all that stuff.
Yeah, with the two doors, and the whole presentation that he gives, like I said, the TED Talk from Hell, where he's comparing religion to
board games
and pop music, and how like certain religions are they're just even the different major religions are just different iterations of the same like stories.
Do you want at this point to sing "Creep" by Radiohead, or do you want to record it at home?
I will not.
It's up to you.
I will not be singing that today. But how did you feel about that? Did that work for you, that scene? Or?
I mean, it's essentially a philosophical discussion, and it's a subject in which I am interested, and he is clearly speaking to people from a specific perspective, which is, I believe this, and especially Sister Paxton, this has shaped my whole life. And he's very arrogant about it. Like, if you make an argument and you believe that you have the truth and the right answer, you can speak in an assured way. But a lot of it is that there's an element of talking down to them because they're young, because they're women, because they're religious. And so then I'm not really sure at that point, like, are you trying to sell them something that will change their mind? Like, are you trying to convince them? Are you trying to, go to the new generation of Mormon missionaries and say, listen, the world is bigger than you think and all this other stuff? And the answer is no, he's not. And when he says there's only, 2 ways out of this house, and the doors, he establishes them as belief or disbelief. They both go to the same shitty place.
Yes, and once again, another as we discussed in our previous. I got attacked by a cat.
More traveled at.
Yeah, we talked about our basement horror.
Well, the problem is Barbarian is a house with a basement that has its own basement. So why are you even there? Than the Airbnb. And this movie is like basements in basements in basements. And I didn't like that. I found that unsettling.
Which one?
This one. All the extra basements under the basement. Like, come on. I don't need more basements. It's enough already.
And then, yeah, because I feel like Weapons was sort of like, it's like the basement is like.
Well, that's a basement.
Yeah, it's a basement.
There isn't a basement under the basement. Like, basements are scary enough. When you're a little kid, you don't want to go to the basement, especially if it's an unfinished basement. There's monsters down there and stuff. But there's more basements with more monsters under the already scary basement.
When I was a kid, very young, I remember playing in the basement, and I'm very young when this happened. Playing in the basement.
15, yeah.
No, like 7. Maybe even younger than that. And I remember I was playing, and I saw a shadow. And I freaked out, and I remember just laying, because I was down in the basement by myself, and I remember laying on the floor for like 5 minutes. And then it took me, I don't know how long, but I eventually processed it to realize that it was just my own shadow that I saw.
Nice.
And then I was like, oh, that's what it was.
Yeah, but what were you afraid of? You were afraid of the dark? And something in the dark that was dangerous to you. And if somebody else came to you and said, you don't have to be afraid of this, and here's the truth, and here's the reality, and all that kind of stuff, in that moment, you would have found a lot of comfort in that. And that is essentially Hugh Grant's thesis, is that there's nothing out there, and you have been manipulated into believing these things, and because you are a human, it makes sense why you're manipulated, but you don't have to be, which is a perfectly legitimate philosophical position you can take and express without having to torture and abduct people.
Yeah, so I definitely think that, well, that was sort of his take, because he was, obviously not right in the head. So now this was interesting that, and this has probably worked for the definitely worked for the benefit of the film, I think, is that they actually shot this movie in chronological order.
Oh, did they?
Yeah. And I think when they can do that, that's always, I always feel like when I find out later on that a movie was shot in chronological order, especially these like smaller type films, I'm always like, I feel like I can, I mean, I don't want to say I could definitely tell, but I always feel like it definitely adds to to the film. Like, it makes it better, I guess. I don't know.
Well, it's got to be easier for the actors. It's not like, in a play, you do a play live and you're telling a story in order and you're building up to something that's perhaps more emotional or whatever. I remember when they were, I guess they were putting out Fellowship of the Ring, and they were talking in the press about how, well, we basically shot all 3 of these movies at once. So we could have a scene from, an hour and a half into Return of the King in the morning, and then have the 3rd scene in Fellowship of the Ring in the afternoon. And I was like, that must be insane. That must be completely insane. So if you have the opportunity to push this story forward just for the performances, it's got to make more sense. And I didn't know that, but I get that, because there is an intensity that I could see would be easier for them to keep. All of the actors, I'm not just talking about like the young women are less experienced than Hugh Grant or something like that. Like you believe that they've known each other for an hour, for 2 hours, that kind of stuff. So
well, because I felt honestly that Sophie Thatcher, Chloe East, like, I thought their performances were really good. I agree. I do really
Everybody's
think
good in this.
Yeah, I mean, Hugh Grant's good too, but I mean, just like the but I think their performances are sort of different, like with like sort of the desperation and kind of like they never oversell it to make it to the point where it's like you know I just never eye rolling or you know they're never like really hysterical to the point where you're like, oh come on man.
Well, they're very skilled, and I would say I hope we'll see more of them, but we're already seeing more of them.
Yeah.
They're already doing more work. And I accidentally had the day that I watched Heretic, I watched it at night, and I accidentally had a Sophie Thatcher film festival because I watched Companion that morning.
Yeah, because I think it's the next. It was when I watched it. I think it was like the next thing suggested.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it's like, oh, you want to watch this? I'm like,
on the Max.
Yeah. And did you know? Now you can't see, I saw this later, so I won't say that I caught this. So I had to go back, and it's really hard to see because it's because of the way that they shot it. That the house number is 237, which is the room number in The Shining. But you can't really.
Well, it's a room number in the movie The Shining.
Yes.
In the book, it's 217, which is a reference that you find in the movie Weapons.
Yes.
So everybody loves The Shining. I get it. Me too.
But they and speaking of like how this would be, sort of they shot this in order and sort of like because it is sort of like intimate with like these three. I almost feel like it could translate to like a play almost.
No, this is another. We didn't mean to, but it's another bottle movie. Yeah. We did Warfare. We did Dog Day Afternoon. We are doing Heretic. Our next episode, The Thing,
sort of.
I mean, our next episode is the film Bodies.
Yeah.
That whole thing takes place in a house.
We're not doing that on purpose.
No, but apparently we like the intensity of that.
But they actually so the directors had them do like a 2-week rehearsal.
Well, these days it's not a movie if you don't do some kind of boot camp.
It seems like it, but from what I understand, a lot of it was them just sort of riffing on just talking about religion and that sort of thing. So that
it's funny because I cannot let an episode pass without mentioning this. But in Mad Max Fury Road, I guess when they were doing that production, he brought people in like scholars and writers and stuff to talk about some of the issues, especially when it comes to the issues of women in society and identity and freedom and all these things. Like that was part of their boot camp.
Oh yeah,
was to discuss those things. So I mean, this movie is a horror movie that is about something. So it makes sense to want to bring in the cast. To understand and and hopefully they were interested in it. I imagine they were. I got the impression that from a little bit that I read that they were excited to be part of this movie.
Yeah.
So I think that's good.
And I really feel like, I mean, honestly, the horror genre over like the last 8 years or so has really just sort of made this like quantum leap into like, and I know people want to this called like elevated horror, and I don't know if that's a dismissive term or if that's a good thing.
It depends on what tone the person says it.
Well, that's true, but I do feel like when you think about these horror movies that actually have something to say, like you look at something like Midsummer, Get Out, Hereditary,
The Witch,
Hereditary. I don't know why I say heredity. I do that. Every
that is
time.
Also a word. But
no, I know. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Teach.
It Follows.
Yes,
The Babadook. They're all about emotions, trauma, a lot of trauma.
Yeah,
and all that kind of stuff. And that doesn't make them better or worse movies because a movie can be about something like that and still be a crappy movie.
Yeah.
But like Midsummer to me is one of the best horror movies in a long time, and we can do that one on this show one day. It would be a lot of fun. But this movie is cut from that cloth. And it's another A24 movie, right?
Yeah.
So I had an A24 Sophie Thatcher festival with 2 A24 movies.
Actually, our next episode is another A24 movie.
Mike, can we do fucking Star Wars or something?
I know, yeah, we do need to do. So speaking of sort of the elevated horror and just the quality, did you know that the cinematographer on this was Chung Hoon Chung, who did Old Boy. So obviously he had a lot of because I thought there were a lot of very there were some interesting and sort of that movie Old Boy had some very interesting and well crafted cinematography, especially in interior scenes.
Yes.
I mean, like, who can obviously when everybody talks about the fight scene in the hallway, and I just love the scene when he does the whole fight down the hallway, goes into the elevator, and then the next shot is him coming out of the elevator and all the guys just falling down behind him. Love that. But
I mean, he's done more than this, but he is Park Chan-wook's guy.
Yeah.
And, he's done, he also shot It. I don't know if it was both of them or just Volume 1, but he shot It, and he shot Hotel Artemis, and he shot Last Night in Soho. I have varying opinions of whether I like those movies or not, but they are all quite distinct. And one of my favorite, almost like trashy pulpy movies was Park Chan-wook's English language movie Stoker.
Okay.
With Nicole Kidman and Mia Wasikowska.
I thought that was the Burt Reynolds racing movie.
No.
Oh, that's Stoker Ace.
That's Stoker Ace. And that whole movie is, the incest and stuff aside, that whole movie is a vibe. It's the feeling at night. It's all these different things. And that is a huge part of that is his work as a cinematographer. And like Old Boy is one of the Vengeance trilogy, so there's Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, there's Old Boy, which is the middle chapter, and there's Lady Vengeance, which is the third chapter. And they don't have the same characters, but they are all about the themes of vengeance and what it means and how do you live with vengeance or how do you live without vengeance, all that kind of stuff. And Lady Vengeance is one of the most beautiful movies I've ever seen.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Like, really unbelievably gorgeous. And if you saw it, you'd go, this is clearly by the same guy who shot Old Boy. Just the look of it and the feel of it. Never mind that it's also by the same director and writers and everything. And it's a step up, and just the beauty of it. And he's continued to shoot, like he shot The Handmaiden and a bunch of other stuff. And he's continued to work in Hollywood. So this almost seems to me like kind of a small movie for him. And as soon as it started, I didn't know he had shot it, but I was like, oh, this movie looks really distinct. And I dug that.
He definitely, I mean, so in some of the movies that you had said that you had talked about that he had shot too, I mean, I'd seen some of those. And I mean, that's one of the things that I would say that from those movies that I have seen, just interesting, like, especially in interior, which, I mean, interior a lot of times, can be very just standard, almost boring. And apparently his philosophy is that the camera should always be sort of an active participant. That's his philosophy. And
so he's like the opposite of Kevin Smith, basically.
Yeah, put it on sticks, lock it down.
Yeah.
But with this, like, because I will say, the one scene that I thought was initially, until I watched the end of the movie, until I got to the end of the movie, the scene where Chloe East is trying to escape and they pull out and she's like, it's her, but it's the model of the house.
Oh, very clever, yeah.
Well, when I first saw that, I was like, come on, man, that's a little bit much. But when you find out that's how she eventually ends up escaping, then I was like, oh, it's like, so initially, even the one shot that I did think was overindulgent, it was like, well, that makes sense why they did that, because it was supposed to be an exact replica of the house, and she figures it out. And I was like, oh, so that was kind of priming me for that.
Right.
Because I really think about, if that scene wasn't there, if that shot wasn't there, would you have kind of bought, or would you have thought, like, would it have seemed weird without having that scene for the end scene when she figures out that she can get out of the house through that one little...
Well, we can talk about the end at the end, but part of the end is what is real and not real about the ending.
Yeah.
So I liked that shot that you're talking about, and it makes it like, this explains plot-wise how she's able to get as far as she's able to get to escape and everything. But if that's what really happened, I don't know.
So, and then they have the, as far as what he did... when the beginning part of the movie, sort of how he's sort of creating the emotion through the cinematography, was that all of the framing in the beginning, if you look at it, with them sitting in the room and talking, is all kind of like, it's like these nice, like, sort of like, I mean, I don't know if he actually put it on sticks and locked it down, but it's closer to that kind of conventional framing,
but a little wider, a little different angle.
Yeah.
So it's like a nice, It's like a nice, little bit off version of what you would expect.
But it's still closer to traditional, where you're like, okay, like your mind's kind of like, and you're probably right. It's probably being a little bit off, and that's why it's yet another thing that makes you feel a little uneasy.
Yeah.
And then as we start to move further into the house, the perspective is more on Mr. Reed, Hugh Grant's character, and sort of you start to feel it's more. It's like there are a lot more close-ups on him. You start to feel sort of his dominance within the story.
Yep.
It really starts to come out, and a lot of those shots of I feel like more of the shots are those shots where you're seeing mostly his face, his whole head, and maybe just a little bit down his neck. Where a lot of the shots of the two women are shots that are sort of like these more medium shots, and a little bit looser, and I think that's a definitely helps with that whole, because I feel like you could see their body language and sort of their desperation, and they're starting to get very nervous, and he's sort of like in their face, almost, because the camera is
look,
set up
even
that
if
way.
someone ends up not liking the film or not enjoying the film, the craftsmanship is all there. I mean, like the details that you're talking about that clearly have been thought out, and work, emotionally speaking, I think it's very effective. And I'm saying that, like, I liked this movie, but I also admired it as I was watching.
And I like that I feel like Hugh Grant made a really good he's just to make an overall statement on that character. It's a really good transition from sort of that handsome leading man to creepy old guy. Pretty good. I feel like he kind of uses that the handsome leading man to his advantage into the creep,
very deliberately.
Especially in the very beginning. The very beginning, the way he acts when they first come to his door, I mean, that could be romantic comedy Hugh Grant in the very beginning.
Yeah, well, he almost started to do that little, like, stuttery Hugh Grant thing that he did in his first movies, when it's like, why don't you come with me to the full weddings?
And he does the little like he's like, okay.
No, I mean, he's
I thought
playing,
you said my soulmate.
Right, he's playing with his persona and everything, and that's effective also.
And shout out to Topher Grace, who's in the movie for like 3 minutes.
Yes, there was actually some disagreement between my wife and I as we were watching it.
Whether it was him?
Yeah. I said I'm not sure, but I think that's him. And she's like, why would it be him? And I said, I'm not sure what else he's up to, and I think that's him. And then when I found out I was right, you know what I felt? Really nothing. Although his character is important, because he's the only person that, and this makes sense in the story. He's the minister that, is responsible for sending these young missionaries out, and he's the one who kind of casually actually notices, more than I would have expected, that they're not back.
Yeah.
And so he's retracing their
because
steps.
He's cleaning the bathroom.
Right. Right. And the really the only cutaways in the movie are to him as he's going to different places, because he knows their route. Yeah. They're like God's mailman, kind of going and talking to these different people, and then he gets to the house, and I had no belief that he was going to get them. Yeah. It wasn't going to turn out to be a Silence of the Lambs type of thing. One of the greatest Mr. X ever. Yeah. But he was someone, and then the way that they use him really effectively was, I think it was this shot when he leaves? Is that when you see the bicycles are gone from the gate? Yeah. You don't know what that means yet, that their big red bike lock and their bikes are gone. But that's obviously something that Hugh Grant did while they were trapped inside. So when he was inside the house puttering about pie and stuff, he actually wasn't in the house. Yeah. But he was, it's a very small cast, and they're all very effective.
So, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about the ending. So tell me your thoughts on what you thought the ending was.
Well, I think the ending is very, this is not just me figuring it out. It's open to two clear interpretations. Okay. And it reminded me of one of my favorite horror movies, The Descent. Okay. And in the movie The Descent, if you haven't seen it, stop before you listen to this. Don't stop listening, because you can just skip ahead like, a minute. But in The Descent, there is an ending that is very bleak. And when it was released in America, American producers were like, that's too bleak. So you think it's a happy ending, and then it isn't. Let's just stop at the happy ending, which is real dumb. And it's still a horror movie happy ending. Like it still involves screaming and stuff. I mean, my favorite horror movie happy ending is probably Texas Chainsaw Massacre with her free. She made it. She escaped, and yet her entire life is just going to be destroyed. But in The Descent, it's women trapped in a cave, and there's one left, and you think she gets out, and then you discover she's only imagining getting out, and she's still stuck in the cave. And the way that the movie ends, literally in The Descent, she claws her way out of the ground, like out of the leaves and the dirt in the Appalachians. She claws her way out of the ground. And in this, Sister Paxton claws her way through the edge of the house and through the window, and she's free and she's out and she's in the air, and you feel her relief. And then she sees the butterfly because she's not really out.
You think so?
That's what I think. I
thought the butterfly was supposed to be Sister. What's her face?
Barnes?
Yeah.
No, I think that's a legit way to read it. I think either interpretation is good. The thing with The Descent is that they released it one way in America that was, this is the ending, and she gets away. And then they showed you the real ending, that was how it was in the rest of the world, and then on home video, which was she didn't make it out.
Because the reason, and this is another reason, there's a couple reasons why I think it was her, because Sophie Thatcher also is singing "Knocking on Heaven's Door" at the end. That's her.
Yes, that's her. That's her covering that song.
Also makes me think that maybe that was intentional too.
See, but that, to me, that's intentional because they're all dead. So they're knocking on heaven's door. So they're all dead.
But how? I don't know. So, but how could Hugh Grant be dead if she's dead?
What do you mean?
Well,
to me, then right.
So you're saying that he's not dead?
No, they're all dead.
But how did he?
She killed him. That's the thing. At certain points in the movie, if you don't think that she got out, when does she start dreaming? Because there's the idea of a near-death experience is that you dream things the way you want them to be. That's in the movie. They talk about that. And so the way you want it to be is that you got out of the house. In The Descent, you want to see your daughter that died horribly, a year before the movie started. You get what you want, but you're not really escaping. And I mean, that's a very human thing, is to fight despair by imagining positive things and stuff. And the movie is about simulation theory, that we live in a simulation that is so real, feeling that we can't tell that it's not real. And they talk about Zhuangzi's butterfly dream and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And so the butterfly, I think, is a real butterfly because she's outside and she escaped. And what a beautiful symbol of change and renewal. It's a sign of her dead friend, which would imply something supernatural, and that religion has a truth to it in the movie, which is not what the villain believes.
Yeah.
And also, is it real? Is it in a dream? Is it a simulation? Is she definitively dead because she's in the afterlife experiencing something that she wants, which is, I'm free?
I think the reason that I didn't feel that way is because I felt like once you realize that it was bullshit when they switched out the when they have the person that died.
Right, which is when I think Sister Paxton died, because Sister Barnes saves her. And I don't think that's what happened.
That's
why it's an interpretation.
No. I understand.
Your opinion, even though it's wrong, I'm just kidding. Your opinion, your interpretation of it is legit. I think that's deliberate. I think the way the directors did it is that you can read it. Because I'm not going to pretend that this movie is about all these major things in human history, and then at the end, the directors are like, yep, there's religion. There are movies who will make declarative statements like that. But I think that the way that the movie concludes, which is the smart way to do it, is we don't really know for most people.
I felt like he was saying that I just felt like they were trying to say that control was like exerting control over people was really all that religion was about.
Right.
So I guess that's where I was sort of going with that, where it wasn't like, so I didn't take it as in when they got to the end where it was like, oh, well, that, they were trying to make the point that, well, religion exists. It was more that they were making the point that, religion control is a part of religion and of any religion. But
Well, I mean, of course it is, especially women.
so yeah. So I mean, I guess that's sort of where I was going. So then, because so with as far as my train of thought when I was thinking that way, to think that they just died is actually incredibly depressing.
Of course it is. Yeah.
I know. So that's why I was thinking that maybe that wasn't the way they were going. I just kind of
it's depressing.
and I think that's why to me I feel like the second half. I feel like the first half was so much stronger than the second half.
I agree. I think it was, but it's only depressing if you don't think that the butterfly proves that she has made it beyond the barrier of death and she's in heaven, because it's peaceful. It's real. Mm-hmm. If you believe religion is real and God is real and you believe heaven is real and you end up in heaven, that's a happy ending.
Yeah.
Because the other ending that she could have is when we find out what Hugh Grant has really been doing, which is trapping and caging women. And that's why he lures women into the house. Because we didn't talk about this, but the way he sets it up is that he causes them to witness a miracle.
Yes.
Which is this woman eats poison. This woman who's clearly been there a long time and is, I guess, the cousin of the mother in Barbarian. Like she's been captured and lives underground and tortured, and so she is.
I don't know.
She's his prophet.
Yeah.
But she doesn't speak. She's in terrible health. All this kind of stuff. So she eats blueberry pie, and he goes, there's poison in there.
Nice.
And you just have to wait. She's gonna come back. And she comes back, except she doesn't come back because the girls figure out, well, this was a trick. And when we were over here, it's like Penn and Teller explaining their trick. You took our attention and put it over here. He gestured with his hands on the audio podcast. Uh-huh. And then what was really happening was you switched it with another woman, which we know he has multiple women in the basement in cages. So it's part of his elaborate, because he's not testing faith so that you can prove something. He already knows. There's no God. Religion is a human construct. Religion is controlled. That's his belief.
Yeah.
And the part of him that's like, oh, he's crazy and evil, is he just keeps wanting to prove it over and over again, and he keeps wanting to prove it to women. He doesn't have a split of genders, and ages, and backgrounds in there. He's got a bunch of women in cages because also some of it is because it's a horror movie about a serial killer, abuser, whatever, and that is always in pop culture is always women because that's very common in real life too.
So I guess that's there's just a couple different ways that you can interpret the ending there.
You look so disappointed in me. It's so funny.
No, that's not. I mean, here's the thing about it is and this is going to sound like a cliche, but when something's put out there and everybody sort of any kind of art that's put out there, people take it in and they consume it in their own unique way. So I'm not disappointed.
As they should.
Yeah.
I mean, you can make a movie. You could sit down with the directors, the writer-directors, and be like, what do you guys think? Because your movie tells me that you think this about religion. And they could be like, yeah, that's what we think.
Yeah.
So what?
I mean, that's one of the reasons why I don't agree. I don't always like when these studios do stuff with like test audiences, or when directors get too explicit about talking about certain things that were originally ambiguous in their work. Like when this is why I appreciate that Quentin Tarantino says he'll never tell anybody what was in the case in Pulp Fiction. He says, I'm not going to do that.
Although most interpretations of that are religious, which is interesting. It's this guy's soul. It's the Ten Commandments. It's like whatever.
It's the Oscar.
Right. But I mean, like, it's interesting. I don't know what the mystery is. So my solution to explaining the mystery is something religious.
Yeah. And I really think that's so I can assure you, I'm not disappointed. I was just, when you said that, I think I was more like, kind of like, almost like, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way.
Oh, I know. I'm just giving you.
I was getting, but, I will say this, but to kind of jump tracks a little bit here, that I think one thing that we can agree on, that over the last decade, a little more than a decade, the A24 has really established itself as a company that has really sort of championed and these original movies that are not, that exist outside of these the franchises. And I'm not going to be one of those people
Yes,
that I'm not
that's
going to be one of
true.
those people that sits there and says, oh, superhero movies are terrible, or all these existing sequels and reboots are terrible, because I do enjoy some of them, some of them I don't, but I just feel like A24 has really and not just some people I think they just make artsy horror movies, and they make so much more. And I'll be honest, for a while I thought that too, and then I went onto their website and started looking, and I went, oh wow, they made so much more than I thought. I knew they had a few here and there, like I knew they'd done Civil War and
That's a horror movie.
well, yeah.
I'm just kidding, and also I'm not kidding.
No,
so.
yeah, but they are definitely, and this is we need more of that, and I like that we have a world that has both. I just don't want there to be one type of movie out there that.
Oh my God, no,
dominates.
of course not. Listen, I really like religious movies about religion, and I like horror movies about religion, and I don't. The fact that you could say, well, you know, doesn't your atheism get in the way of believing the horror? No, because it's an effective movie and it's exciting. Like, I think the Omen movies are fine. I don't love them. The first Omen that came out recently is great.
Oh yeah,
Like really great. And
I've
that
not
is
seen that.
very clearly about, demons and fucking your way to Antichrist babies and like really horrifying, monstrous stuff. And I don't watch a movie like that and go, well, I don't believe it. So this is a movie that's about interrogating that, which is also interesting. And the movie that it really reminded me of more than Saw, I don't know if you've seen it. It's on the list of like the most upsetting horror movies ever. It's called Martyrs. It's a French-Canadian movie. And
I've heard of it.
it's essentially about, this is a big spoiler, but it's about the idea of torturing people. And the reason that you're torturing them, and they're always young women, is because if you torture them enough, they will pierce the veil and they will see God and they will see the truth. And it's quite horrifying.
And this is available on Disney Plus.
I think it's available on Disney Plus, but I wouldn't know because I canceled my subscription. I have it on Blu-ray, and I won't lie, I've only watched it one time.
Yeah.
But it's really it's about and that movie takes, I think, a very clear, in the world that it's in and the characters that it's in, whether there's a God or not, and things like that. But this movie is about testing that, and in this case, it's also a human being using pain and fear to prove a point that the movie itself doesn't necessarily agree with. But I think that makes it interesting. Because I like movies like Butcher Boy, the one with Sinead O'Connor as the Virgin Mary, about a serial killer, little Irish kid, and The Exorcist, and all these things. This is, I think, a good addition to that canon.
Did you know that the Church of Latter-day Saints of course, not surprising, they issued like a statement condemning the movie, but
Did they? What a shock.
yes, but this is also interesting. In addition to that, to the condemnation, they also issued some information about missionary safety based
did
on
they?
this too. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Well, that's
so
not
I guess
bad.
I guess some positive. There's something positive did come out of that. As well, but
So when the positive thing is when people are out proselytizing, which is often unwelcome, they should be careful.
yeah, and,
Yes.
Well, I mean, but apparently a lot of former Mormons did praise the film for sort of they felt like it was a respectful portrayal of a missionary life, and they thought it was because it is nuanced. It shows them in the beginning. I'm sure that current members of the Church of Latter-day Saints did not appreciate some of the sex talk, but I think that's normal. Those are young people in the beginning, and I think that's a normal conversation to have, because it wasn't, I don't think it was gratuitous. I think it was
Not at all.
showing just that's young people talk, because it's something they're curious when you're young. I mean, that's just That's something you're just curious about.
They're also, especially you discover that Sister Barnes actually has the birth control implant in her arm, which tells you more about her past and either someone who grew up Mormon and then spent some time out of it, like a Rumspringa kind of thing, or someone who grew up Mormon and rebelled against it, as opposed to Sister Paxton, who knows nothing else and embraces it, which again doesn't make her stupid or anything like that in the movie. She's the one who figures out finally what the point is of what Hugh Grant is doing and his whole scheme and why he's doing it. Because he's not just like, I hate women. He has a whole twisted philosophy himself, which is real to him, that drives him to do that. But I mean, these are also people, especially Sister Paxton, that aren't equipped to talk about those things. Sure. So they don't really know anything. They didn't go to missionary school, and that included sex ed, stuff like that. Yeah. And so that feels very real, that they're young people who have those feelings and curiosities and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And that is also part of what religion is controlling.
Sure. And I think that I think it's interesting too that I don't know. Maybe it's just me because I'm just I don't know. I thought it was interesting that Mr. Reed didn't realize that was a birth control implant because he pulls it out of her. He cuts her arm, takes it out after you assume that she's dead, and he's like, "Oh, this is she's fake."
Or you know that she's dead.
Well. And
right,
but I do find it interesting. But but maybe not everybody knows that those things exist.
Well, if you put one on a table in front of me, I wouldn't have necessarily known exactly what it was.
Well, that's true. I mean, I will admit that. I wouldn't. I didn't know that they looked like that. Mm-hmm. But if I put it out of someone's. If I put it out of a woman's arm, which I would certainly never do, but
that's good to know.
Yes, I'm not crazy.
Live or dead, you're not.
Yes, I'm not. Either way, I'm not doing that. But I think I could figure it out.
There are people who would be absolutely certain it's a government implant, or from aliens, or all sorts of things.
Of course,
because you want to have control of things. So sometimes people believe things that aren't true, that are demonstrably untrue, because it gives them control over the lack of control that we feel as people.
Certainly. So, did you have anything else that you wanted to bring up about the movie?
I think it's worth watching.
Yeah.
I recommend it. I think it's genuinely creepy.
Yeah.
It's got it looks great. It's got great sound design. The actors are it's a small company, and they do really good work, and stuff is genuinely disturbing. And if you like the religious horror movies that have been coming out, like Sister Maud and and the ones I mentioned and all this stuff, like this is a good example of what A24 does, of what modern horror can be, and it's thoughtful and it's satisfying. And I really like the fact that the ending is open to interpretation, because it's different than an ending of something like Weapons.
Yeah.
Which some people watch that movie and they go, I don't understand, it just stopped. and I get that.
Yeah.
But I feel very confidently that movie did not just stop.
Yeah.
Like if you don't like it or whatever, that's one thing. This movie, I really genuinely believe, as you can tell between the two of us, that she got out, and I know that she didn't. And that's okay. That's good to me.
I agree.
What do you think? Not about whether she got out.
No, but I mean, the movie. No, I thought it was good. I definitely think it's worth watching. I do. One of the things that I'm most skeptical about is whether or not the air that we breathe sounds anything like Radiohead's "Creep." But
right.
Apparently I guess that is a real lawsuit that occurred. I'm assuming. I didn't actually.
Yeah, no, that's all real.
I don't know.
They got sued and then they sued later.
I know
Lana Del Rey. So.
And I don't know if that was my biggest thing that I had to overcome as far as my suspension of disbelief. But
so that was your biggest crisis of faith.
Yes, that was my crisis of faith was Radiohead and the Hollies. So if there was nothing else to bring up, then I guess that's a wrap on the Heretic.
Is it the Heretic or just Heretic?
Heretic.
It's just Heretic, right? Yeah,
it is. And I actually specifically wrote that, so I wouldn't forget.
I'm not faulting you. I
wrote it in red, bold letters too, and. But we'll be back the next episode, and we're doing Bodies.
Yes, as October continues.
Yes, this is we're getting close to our Halloween episode, which is not next week, but the week after. And our So we have Bodies, 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 which is quite a different movie.
Yes. Also A24, also a horror movie about things, and a movie that we felt strongly different ways about.
Yes. Well, I don't know if we felt different or not. We'll find out.
No, I mean...
That's why you tune in.
That's right. Find out.
And then, yes, follow us on Instagram at StoryPunkPod to find out updates. And when the next episode drops, we have a Facebook page to find out just random stuff that we put on there. And also, I put the updates when the next episode comes out, and interesting cinema related stuff there. And on Letterboxd, if you're interested in my reviews, some are mostly short, and I'm Storypunk Scott on Letterboxd, and Drew is also on Letterboxd.
Yep, Solid Gould. You can find me there.
And yet we also we are on Substack. We did a couple articles, and we're gonna do some more. So if you go in there and you only see a couple, I also post the podcast on there as well. And really, you can find our podcast all the major podcast platforms, and even like not all just the major ones, the little ones too, because we do not discriminate. We are all inclusive.
That's right.
And if you have anything else to add before we go?
No, I think this was a good movie, and for October, pretty creepy movie.
Yeah, definitely creepy. So, well, if there's nothing more to add there, then we will head on out. We're gonna I don't know where we're gonna go. Anyway, just remember.
Why are you still saying goodbye? We're done.
We're done. Okay, and remember, story matters.